Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 24. Hey Junkie, welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Richard Ussher hails from Nelson, New Zealand, and is widely regarded as the premier multisport athlete in the world. Richard represented New Zealand in the freestyle skiing event of moguls at the 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan, before switching to adventure racing and triathlon. With 5 coast-to-coast victories, 3 Adventure Racing world titles, an 8-hour and 2-minute Ironman PB, Richard has been on the top of his game for over a decade and is showing no signs of slowing down. All right, Richard, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. For those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your sporting background growing up as a kid in New Zealand?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I was really into a little bit of everything. If it was sport, then I tended to give it a bit of a crack. And I guess over the when I sort of got into high school, I sort of started getting into triathlons and rowing and things like that. And then I saw the Olympics on TV, the Winter Olympics, and saw the mogul competition actually. And I'd done a little bit of skiing, probably about 50 days in my 18 years of, but it had been, I was really sort of captivated by it, and I sort of decided on the spot that was what I was going to try. So I sort of up and left school and went and tried my hand at freestyle skiing, and then once I'd sort of finished that journey, then I got into more of the endurance racing, and that was again I just was at a bit of a loose end and saw the coast to coast race on TV, and just the concept of going from one side of the country to the other in a day was really appealing, and that sort of started my journey, which is I guess now lasted over 15 years, and sort of from multisport and into more the traditional triathlon and the adventure racing as well. So yeah, it was just sort of being in at certain places at the certain times and seeing things that I guess got me excited and gave me a bit of a goal to work towards.
Yeah, cool. So you picked up skiing at age 18, just after watching it on TV, and then 4 years later you're competing yourself at the Nagano Games. Can you tell us a bit about that journey and what your expectations were going into the games?
Yeah, well, I mean, looking back on it now, it's pretty surreal, and I can definitely understand a lot better the concerns that my parents had, me sort of just up in sticks and going to sort of chase this crazy dream. But it was definitely a sort of a total immersion kind of experience. I moved from where I grew up in Wellington in New Zealand to Wanaka, where there was a freestyle skiing program, and I got down there, and I mean everyone was better than me. Like the 12-year-old kids were kicking my ass, and it was but it was just one of those things where for the best part of 4 years I was just totally driven. I was the first person up there every day and the last person off the mountain, and just did everything that I could possibly do to get better. And I was actually pretty close to not going to the Olympics. I mean, I qualified and I met our country's criteria, and I was legitimately there. But for me, when I set the goal to go to the Olympics, it had been very much about going there to try and win a medal, and it was pretty obvious that I wasn't going to win a medal. But a few of the friends that I had on the tour, they were like, well, you might never get the opportunity again, so you should definitely take it. And so for a long time, the Olympics was an amazing experience. Just the amount of people and the hype and just the whole experience was something that I'll never forget. But it was also not the experience that I was really looking for when I decided that I wanted to go to the Olympics. So for a long time I didn't really know how to feel about that experience, and it wasn't until I guess I got a bit of perspective with success in other sports that I was able to look back on it and I guess really appreciate the journey that I went on, and and how far I went in just a short space of time.
Yeah. Is it because you were disappointed after the games that you left skiing and pursued other interests, or did that come later?
No. The reason for finishing was, I mean, in those days, all of the Olympic sports were amateur, and it was very, very hard to get funding to ski. And the federation in New Zealand, just wasn't really set up to help people try and achieve it. At that sort of high end, it was much more sort of focused on, I guess, just getting a wide variety of people into the sports, and it's definitely improved, I think, over the years. Like now, there's some fantastic skiers from New Zealand, especially in the park and pipe and stuff like that. And obviously, they're doing things a lot better now. But in those days, it was I just simply couldn't afford to keep going. I had some great support from my family, but they were sort of from limited means, and it was just purely a financial kind of thing, really.
Yeah, cool. So, how did you get into adventure racing then?
Well, I guess I sort of started off with multisport, what we call multisport here in New Zealand. So races like the coast to coast, and just running, biking, and kayaking events. And after, I guess I'd been competing for about 18 months or 2 years, and a friend of mine suggested that I join their team and give the Southern Traverse a crack, which was one of the original adventure race one of the original ones. It was probably after the raid. It was probably the second one ever launched, and that was sort of down in Queenstown in New Zealand in the South Island. And to be honest, about after a couple of days, I was sort of starting to question why I'd even put myself on the start line, and we were all tired and lost and cranky, and and I get constantly reminded by my friend that I did say that it would be the last time I ever did one, and obviously that wasn't the case, but. It was just a totally different experience, and having never done anything longer than probably about 12 hours, to go for, I think we went for about 140 hours, with very little sleep. And I mean, we were all rookies, and we probably went twice as far as we had to, and just made some really quite stunning errors, especially in the navigation. And so just getting to the finish line, I think was more of a relief than anything. But that's sort of what kickstarted it. And I just was never able to say no when people said, "Oh, do you want to come and do a race?" Especially when it was overseas. So it was that was pretty much how I sort of fell into it, really.
So you were pretty competitive from the beginning.
Yeah, the first team that I raced on, we were the last team to finish the full course for the at the Southern Traverse. I think there were only 12 teams that finished out of a field of about 50. So we were all reasonably good athletes, but just had no idea on some of the finer points of the racing. And for myself, I mean, I'd never really done any navigation at that time, and that was definitely one of the things that I enjoyed, sort of learning that skill and sort of tackling the navigation on the races in the future. But it was from a physical point, it was able to be reasonably competitive straight away. But it's a lot more than that in the long races, especially.
Yeah, all right. The reason I'm bringing you on here today is because you're the 5-time winner of the New Zealand's Coast to Coast Adventure Race. For those of us who don't know it, can you tell us a bit about it and the distances involved and the different sports?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's just over 240 kilometres across from the west coast of the South Island to the east coast, and it's sort of right around the centre there. So it starts in a little place called Kumara, which is a very tiny little place, and finishes in Christchurch, which is the major sort of city in the South Island of New Zealand. So, but you start with a quick sort of 3K run off the beach. You literally start on the beach and you run up to your bikes. And you're riding on the road. It's about 55 kilometres through to the next transition, where you start the two real key sections, I guess, in the coast to coast race are the mountain run and the kayak. And the mountain run is the next stage, and it's about 33k depending on which way you go. And it's virtually probably at least half of it would be off trail, and what trail there is very rough. You basically run up a riverbed and then over a pass and then down some slightly better tracks. You then jump back on your road bike and cycle about 15 kilometres down to the river, and the river is the Waimakariri River. It's and you kayak 70 kilometres down there, and it's a mixture of sort of grade 1 and grade 2 rapids. So
70?
70k, so
Whoa.
it's flying reasonably fast, and there is some pretty good rapids on there. But we paddle sort of like modified K1 boats. They've just been stretched so they go better through the waves and over the shallows and that. But that's usually about 4 hours for the fastest times on the river, and then the final section is 70 kilometre time trial across the Canterbury Plains, and then you finish on the east coast on the beach. And it traditionally has been in Sumner, which is a little sort of a little community where you had to actually go through the very centre of Christchurch, but that's just been changed this year to New Brighton. So athletes will get a slightly less congested ride through the city. It's sort of, we're able to skirt the city a little bit now.
So how does that work with logistics? Because you need your bike a couple of times on the course. You got a team that puts your bike from one transition to another.
Yeah, so at the moment, basically everyone needs to have at least one person to transport their gear for them. So there's sometimes there's been upwards of 800 competitors in the race, and I should probably mention as well that it's actually run. There is actually the main race, the World Championship race, is the 1 day race, which happens on the Saturday. But the race is also it's got a 2 day race option as well, where competitors can do the first half of the race to the end of the mountain run, and then they camp at a place called Klondike Corner, and then on the Saturday morning they set off and with that short ride down to the paddle and complete the remainder of the course. So it's got individual options in the 2 day, but also teams and pairs racing as well. So it's by far the biggest participation side of the race, and makes it much more achievable. Whereas the elite race, the 1 day races, you've got to be able to stay reasonably close to the top competitors to get through the cutoffs, especially onto the river. So it's definitely a pretty big challenge, the 1 day race for people.
So you've won it 5 times in total. And how many times did you race it? And how long did it take you before you won it the first time?
I think I've done the 1 day race 10 times, and I've done also the first time I did the 2 day race, and I've also done the teams race once as well. But it took me, the first year that I was able to win it would have been my 4th try at the longest day. So there was definitely it's such a long day to be. It's for the fastest guys, it's usually around between 11 and 11 and a half hours, depending on the wind and the river flows. So it's almost another half longer than an Ironman as far as time goes. And just managing your day just takes a little bit of experience, or a lot of experience, and it just so for me it was just as well as sort of crafting the physical side, it was also just getting my head around exactly what it sort of took mentally, and also just to manage that day.
Yeah, was that always like the A race of your season, or did you have other races that you were peaking to?
To be honest, I mean, in such a small sport like multisport and adventure racing, we were typically racing reasonably year round, and it just depended on the year that what major races there were around. But certainly, when I was doing a lot of adventure racing, they were probably the more the events that we were focusing on a little bit more. Like the mild 7 outdoor quests, and the AR World Series deciders and things like that. So, and just simply from a financial point of view, they made more sense to put the time into that. But it was definitely always a race that in New Zealand carries quite a lot of kudos, and so it was great for our sponsors to do well there, and I guess always a race that that was sort of targeted definitely in the latter part of the year and into the early part of each year, because it's in February each year. So it sort of coincided quite well with the end of the adventure racing season, and you got to have a little bit of a break after that usually.
Yeah, cool. Then after your third win, I think you moved away a bit of adventure racing and switched towards Ironman triathlon. Why that switch?
Well, I guess for a number of reasons. One, I've never really just tried to win one race just to see how many times I can rack up wins in it. It's always been about finding a new challenge and testing yourself against the best people that you can find. And there definitely is a little bit of competition between the multisport athletes and the triathletes in New Zealand, and there was definitely a perception that that the triathletes were the better athletes. And so the first Ironman I did was in Taupo at the New Zealand Ironman, and it was really just to sort of see if I could foot it with some of the better triathletes and better Ironman athletes. And the first one went reasonably well, and I sort of decided that maybe that wasn't that I hadn't sort of ticked that challenge off just by competing and doing reasonably well, that maybe there's a little bit more there, and that was sort of I guess the catalyst to take a couple of years away and to sort of chase that a little bit. Yeah.
So how was that with the swim? Because you didn't. Did you swim when training for adventure racing?
No. Well, the swim was definitely my weak point, and but again, it was quite nice having to learn a skill from a low level again, rather than having to eke out like tiny percentage gains. So it's always I quite enjoy that learning aspect, and targeting different skills and seeing how well you can do them. But the swimming was definitely a frustration. But it wasn't. I didn't find that the on-road stuff like the Ironman and that really. I didn't find the same enjoyment out of it as I did with the off-road stuff, and that's, I guess, ultimately why I didn't continue doing it for a long period of time.
Yeah, because you did an 802 in Roth in 2009, and you definitely had some potential there, but you only did it a couple of years before, I think, moving to Xterra and adventure racing again. So it definitely was missing the off-road part that made you switch again.
Yeah, it was. I just love being out in the hills and on the rivers and just in I guess just generally in slightly more wild environments than what the road and Ironman kind of side of things gave me. And I still kind of look at the Ironman racing, and and think, there's an amazing challenge there, and I'll definitely probably do a few more, just as for personal, ticking off a few personal boxes, but yeah,
Going sub 8.
yeah, but well, that was definitely something that I thought I might have had in me, but yeah, just with how my career panned out, and a few things around injuries, but also just time wise, I was never able to really commit that time to it,
Yeah.
and so I guess that's one thing that when I look back on, maybe I think, oh, that would have been nice to maybe chase that a little bit harder. But at the end of the day, I've had I've always tried to really keep quite a high fun aspect in the racing, and I mean that's why I started, and that's to a large degree why I raced, and why I'll probably always race even when I'm not racing professionally, is I just really enjoy it. And so when I wasn't enjoying it so much, it took away a lot of the reason to to be on the start line.
Yeah, cool. What do you see as your biggest accomplishment in the sport so far?
Oh, probably actually making a living out of for 15 years out of a reasonably minority sport, and it's my wife, Alina. We met racing Adventure Racing back in 2005, and so we've been able to, for the 10 years since then, is we've been able to run ourselves like a little business, and manage our sponsors, and keep our heads above water, which I know a lot of people try to do, and ultimately have quite a few struggles with. So we've had some. We've definitely had a few battles at various times to sort of keep that dream alive, but it's given us an amazing lifestyle, and we've seen some amazing places around the world, and met some amazing people. So I think over and above everything, that's probably the biggest thing I'll take away from from this period of my life.
Yeah, cool. Any disappointments or regrets?
No, I don't. Not really. No. We sort of had to make certain sacrifices to to be able to do what we do. Like there's a few we definitely had to look at races and go, okay, what are the what's the prize money, and how are we going to we had to be quite ruthless as far as what races we targeted, and it meant that we ended up going to a few races multiple times, and we didn't get to experience maybe some of the other races that just looked like cool races, but that's the opportunity we've got now that we're not so we're not, well, especially for myself, I'm not racing as quite as seriously anymore, and so I'm really looking at ticking all those boxes for for the races I always wanted to go and do, but that just didn't make sense from a sort of a business point of view. So that's sort of the box we're up to ticking now.
So you're a bit of on a turning point in your career as an athlete, because you will not be competing in next year's Coast to Coast because you've taken on the role of race director. Can you maybe explain the story behind that, and what it's like on the organizing side of the event?
Yeah, well, it's definitely I'm learning a lot about it very quickly, but no, the coast to coast race started in 1983, so it actually is an older race, even than Kona, than the Ironman race, and I think it was pretty ahead of its time. But especially in the last few years, there's been a few areas where it's maybe been let down, and the numbers have been falling a little bit. And I was, I guess. I'd been reasonably vocal about the need for the race to evolve and change. And last year the race was sold, and the new owners came to me and I guess wanted to have a bit of a talk about what I sort of thought would be good for the future of the race, and they obviously liked what I had to say, and I ended up with a job out of it. So definitely not a not an area that I thought that I would go into by any means. I'd sort of always thought that I would stay away from that, but it was just too good an opportunity to turn down. And I've been actually having a huge amount of fun, and learning the other side of the race, the organisational side of the race, and it's been great to be a part of some really positive change for the race. And already we're seeing the numbers are up. We're sort of hoping that we'll be about 60% up on numbers from this year already. So people obviously are pretty happy with the direction that we're taking it as well.
So what are the big differences then that you try to push through?
Well, I guess we've tried to look at. Well, first of all, we addressed the entry fees. So for a long time, the team entries were basically, so for a 2-person team, you're basically paying double what the individuals were. So we've reduced that right back, and rather just trying to make it easier for people in that regard. We're putting a lot more technology around the race. So there's always been electronic timing, but not in the mountains or the river. And so we've implemented that this year. So support crews will actually, and people following the race will be able to really see, how their people are progressing through the mountain, rather than a few sort of random messages coming out of the mountain and the river sections on the radios. There's also GPS tracking of all the top athletes, which is proving a little bit hard to implement, because there's actually you're relying on proper GPS rather than GPS through the cellular system, because there's no cell phone coverage on about 75% of the course, which makes finding a tracker that's small enough and easy enough to track people on a little bit of a challenge, because people are travelling pretty light. And just I think in general, just sort of tidying up a whole lot of little issues that have been around. And that's where, having been to so many different races around the world, there's a lot of things that I've seen and thought, oh, that could work really well in this place or in that place. And we're just working out now, like which things we can implement and what makes sense to, I guess, to add value to the race.
Yeah, cool. Because I think it's pretty easy to to criticize an organization for not giving good tracking, and I think WTC is really getting hammered for that. But it's not always as easy as it sounds, I guess.
No, and that's been a huge learning curve for me as well. As there's always a lot of rumor and this can happen or that can happen, from the athletes sort of side, but. When you actually get to sort of see the nuts and bolts behind the event, quite often the picture is a little bit different than what is being portrayed, on the other side. So it is quite a balancing act to do something that's or to implement things that make sense from a business point of view, and also from an athlete's point of view, and making sure that that they come in on budget and. All of those different things. It really is quite tough sometimes, and sometimes there's just not ideal solutions for things either, and that's what we've been finding with how we monitor, especially the run and kayak sections, because they are in the middle of nowhere, and that's one of the real attractions for people for the race. I mean, you're racing through absolutely pristine wilderness, which most people never get to see, and they're quite remote, but it creates a lot of challenges at the same time.
Yeah, all right, cool. Well, yeah, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but if entries are up already, I guess you're doing a good job, and you'll probably be analyzing everything after the race and make it even better for the future. Yeah, well, thanks for your time, Richard. That's about all the time we have for today. Just to finish off, how can people get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with us is probably either through Facebook or Twitter, or our website, which is adventuresportnz.com. There's a link there to contact us. Or if there are inquiries about the Coast to Coast, then the Coast to Coast website, which is coasttocoast.co.nz.
All right, cool. I'll make sure to put those in the show notes. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors if you still have some.
Yeah, no, we've actually been really fortunate. With all of our sponsorships, we've been our major sponsors, Subway, who've been with us for 8 years now, and without them, we definitely wouldn't be living the dream that we have. But our other major sponsors are Champion Systems, Giant Bikes, MV Wheels, and Torpedo 7. So we're very, very lucky to have the support from those guys, and a lot of smaller sponsors as well. But those guys are the ones that allow us to sort of do what we do. So very happy.
All right, cool. I'll put the links up as well. Anything else you want to plug?
Probably just on the coast. One thing I forgot to mention is that for the next event, we're really focused on the nuts and bolts and just getting the event itself right. But for 2016, we're really looking at how we can improve the logistics for people coming from overseas and making really easy pathways for them. Obviously, it's quite hard to jump on a plane with a 6 metre long kayak. So, we're working really, really hard to make it as easy as possible for people to come across, and sorting support crews and accommodation and boats and training trips and everything like that. So, if people are interested in the race from overseas, then definitely get in touch, and we'll do our best to make it happen and make it happen as easy as possible.
Right. Do you have a lot of international competitors at the moment?
We probably have about 150 international competitors at the moment, but we'd love to get that sort of number up around 50% of the field. So, potentially 400 or 500 internationals. I definitely think is realistic, and so we're working pretty hard to put things into place for that, especially for from the 2016 event onwards.
Just as long as you don't get any drafting on the bike. At least there's room enough for more competitors.
Oh, there's definitely plenty of room there. So the field spreads itself out reasonably quick, and there will be. We are looking at potentially having a completely draft-free pro race in 2016 as well. So anyone who's got their eye on the money. Then we should be able to provide a pretty unique experience on that one as well.
All right, cool. All right, thanks very much, Richard. Much appreciated.
No problem. Great talking to you, Peter.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Bye.
Well, Junkie, I really hope you enjoyed that little chat with Richard Ussher today. If you're looking for the show notes, you can find it on our brand new website, which you can find at www.junkiepodcast.com. And there's a search box on the right hand side, and if you type in Richard and click on the search button, you will no doubt be redirected to the correct show notes. What else is coming up this week? We've got Tim van Berkel on Friday. Tim was the fastest Aussie at Ironman Kona this year, finishing 7th, and he will tell you all about the story, how he became the second youngest Ironman winner in history when he won Ironman Western Australia in 2008, and why he waited 6 years before tackling Ironman Kona. If you like the show, if you like what I'm doing here, as usual, can I just ask you for a couple of minutes of your time? Go to iTunes and give me a rating and a review. That will definitely help me grow the show even further. It's going well so far. We're growing every day, but we can always use some extra listeners. So, Tim is coming on Friday, so hope to catch you then.